Hey kids, welcome to section 1.2, overtime pay. Today we're going to learn how to calculate straight time pay, which we already learned, overtime pay, which we're going to learn today, and then total pay. So to get ready for the lesson, why do employers pay a higher rate for overtime work? Why do they pay a higher rate for overtime work? All right, let's look at the vocab. So when you work more than the regular number of hours, you may earn overtime pay. Okay. A regular work week can be anywhere between 30 and 40 hours before earning overtime pay. So most people will work their 40 hours, and then if they work any more than that, they'll get paid more per hour than they usually do. Some places where people work, they're very strict. They don't want them going over their total amount of hours. So each place is different. So one type of pay, overtime pay, is when you are paid an additional hourly pay for working over the regulated amount of weekly hours. And it differs from place to place. Every place of employment has a different total number of hours for regular. There are two types of overtime that we're going to talk about today. The first one is called time and a half. And this is a type of overtime rate equal to 1.5 times your regular hourly rate. That's time and a half. So 1 and 1/2 is how you get the 1.5. Double time is the other type of overtime, and this type of overtime rate is equal to 2 times your regular hourly rate. So we have 1.5 times and 2 times your regular hourly rate. A lot of employers often pay double time on Saturdays or on Sundays and on holidays. Again, each place is different, so wherever you work, find out their rules. Over here on the left-hand side in the white box are the 4 steps that you need to follow to finding total pay. Total pay is when you take your straight time pay, like we learned about in lesson 1.1, and you add it together with your overtime pay that we're getting in lesson 1.2, and together you get a total pay. So that's down here in the bottom. Find your straight time pay first, find the overtime hourly rate second, find the overtime pay third, and then add to find the total pay fourth. Over here on the right-hand side in the boxes are your formulas. So the overtime hourly rate is either taking your hourly rate times 1.5 if it's time and a half, or hourly rate times 2 if it's double time. And then to find your overtime pay, you're taking whatever that rate is that you just calculated and multiplying it by how many hours you worked. Then to find your total pay, you're going to add the straight time pay and the overtime pay together. All right, that's a lot of vocab, so let's go ahead and start to do some examples. All right, first example, find time and a half, an hourly rate of $15.76. So time and a half is 1.5, and so to find the hourly rate for time and a half, we're going to do 1.5 times 15.76. Let's get rid of this. If we multiply these, we're oftentimes going to get 3 decimals. So remember, 2 decimals is what you want to round to. This gives us an hourly rate of $23.64. All right, B, find time and a half for an hourly rate of $11.60. So again, time and a half is the number 1.5. We're going to multiply it by $11.60. This gives us an hourly rate of $17.40. All right, letter C, find double time for an hourly rate of $12.15. Double time is the number 2 times $12.15. This is going to give us $24.30 an hour. And finally, letter D, find double time for an hourly rate of $10.20. Double time is the number 2, multiplied by $10.20. This gives us an hourly rate of $20.40. All right, so that's some practice on finding hourly rates at time and a half and double time. Let's put it together and do some examples. Juan Torres is paid $12.40 an hour for a regular 40-hour work week. He makes time and a half, that's 1.5, for an overtime rate. This week, Torres worked 40 regular hours plus 11 hours of overtime. What is his total pay? All right, so we've got two different kinds of pay. We've got straight time pay first, and then we have overtime second. And then if we add these together, we get total pay. All right, first thing we should do is find straight time pay. So that's regular hours times regular hourly rate. Well, regular hours is 40 regular hours at a regular hourly rate of $12.40. So we're going to take $12.40 and we're going to multiply it by 40 hours. This is going to give us $496. Then we need to calculate what the time and a half rate is going to be. So we take the regular hourly rate, $12.40. I'll put time half. No, we'll just leave it as $12.40. So we're going to take $12.40 and we're going to multiply it by 1.5. This tells me that I'm getting $18.60 an hour. Okay, so that $18.60 we're going to take over here to overtime, and we're going to multiply by how many hours we worked, which was 11. If I take $18.60 and multiply by 11, I get $204.60. Total pay, remember, we're going to add them together. So $496 and $204.60 gives us $700.60. That is how much Juan earned. Total pay. All right, next example. Xavier normally works an 8-hour day. So normally 8 hours. He is paid $13.69 an hour for regular time work and double time. So double time is the number 2 for any hours over 40. Xavier worked these hours last week. Find his gross pay for the week. So Monday, 9 3/4. Let's change that to 9.75, because if I do 3 divided by 4, I get 0.75. Tuesday was 8 hours. Wednesday, 6.5. Thursday, 8.5. So let's change that to 8.5. And then Friday was 8 hours. All right, so if we total all of these hours up, that's 40 hours, 0.75. 40.75 hours. All right, well, let's see. He gets $13.69 an hour for the first 40 hours. So $13.69 an hour. Did he work more than 40? Yes, it looks like he earned some overtime. So let's multiply by 40. This gives us $547.60. Now let's look at his overtime. Well, his overtime is double time. So that means we're going to take his regular pay, which is $13.69, and multiply by 2. So his overtime rate is going to be $27.38 an hour. So we're going to take that $27.38 an hour, and we're going to multiply by how many hours he worked at that rate. Well, he worked a total of 40.75 hours. If I take away 40 hours, that means he has 0.75 in overtime. So multiply by 0.75 of overtime. That gives $20.54. If I want to find his total pay, I add these two up. This gives us a total of $568.14. Not too shabby, Xavier. All right, next one. Olivia Ricardo works on a 40-hour work week basis, and her work time is recorded in tenths of an hour. So that's 1 decimal. 1 decimal. She is paid time and a half. Ooh, time and a half. So that's 1.5. For all hours worked over 40 in a week. Olivia's regular time pay, $12.87 an hour. She worked these hours in a week. 8.4, 7.8, 8.0, 9.5, 9.2, 8.5 on Friday. What gross wages did Olivia earn last week? So gross wages is like saying gross income, which is taking straight time, adding overtime, and getting total. So let's do straight time first. Straight time. So I'm going to take my total hours that I worked and multiply by my regular hourly rate. Well, let's see, we probably need to add up the 8.4, the 7.8, the 8.0, the 9.2, and the 8.5 total hours. All right, total hours. If we add all those up, we get 41.9 hours. All right, so regular time is 40 hours. So how much do we earn? $12.87 an hour. So 12.87 multiplied by a regular 40-hour work week gives us $514.80. Now our overtime is our time and a half. Let's see what our time and a half is going to be. So our regular rate, $12.87 times 1.5, that's going to give us an overtime rate of $19.31. So let's take that $19.31 and multiply it by the hours. Well, 41.9 hours altogether. If I take away 40, that leaves me with 1.9 hours. So I'm going to take that 1.9 hours and multiply it here. So 19.31 times 1.9, that's $36.69. To find total pay, I'm going to add these up. So that's going to give me $551.49. All right, last example. Jane Amayo earns an hourly rate of $11 and she receives double time, that's 2, for overtime. This week she worked 40 hours at her regular rate and 7 hours of overtime. What is her straight time pay? All right, straight time pay is when you take regular hours times regular rate. So 40 regular hours times $11 an hour is $440. Letter B, what is her overtime hourly rate? Well, her overtime hourly rate, it's double time, and she normally earns $11. So now she is earning $22 an hour. Letter C, what is her overtime pay? That's when you take your overtime rate, which is $22, and you multiply it by your overtime hours, which is 7. So this is $154. And then finally, letter D, what is her total pay? This is when you add the overtime pay and the straight time pay together. So $440 plus $154 gives us a grand total of $594. All right, kids, that's how you calculate overtime pay. If you have any questions, please let me know. And as always, keep calm and keep trucking.